Let us look at the African perspective on human nature and community.
In every culture, there is a preoccupation with the question of what is man. The Greeks had it, the Hebrew had it. In African culture, also, there is a question of what makes up the human person. The human person, in African understanding, mutu, umuntu, is a ball, as it were, of dynamo, a force that is packed up, that is dynamic. A human person is not a dead thing. It is charged with energy. This energy, by the way, is within the person, but is also an energy that is derived from the greater energy, which is divinity, the force vital. So the human person is a dynamo, a force vital, but this energy is not neutral. This energy relates with other similar energies. So that when you speak about the human being and energy, it is like picturing an electric wire which is charged with the electricity and is always in relationship with other electric energies that are being exuded by this. So this is what a human person is.
The idea of Ubuntu is the idea of being human. It's the essence of being human. Itself, it has no gender. It is the idea of being. That idea of being can take different kinds of dimensions of Ubuntu small, Ubuntu bigger, and so on. Because in the African system, the idea is that you are not in one point, in one dimension. You are actually developing. You can actually lose this quality and become a beast. You can actually increase this quality and become a god in your own lifetime. You can be, if you actually act in such a way that you become what is known as a child of God. When you're so good that you are Ubuntu, the essence becomes the quality of yourself. Ubuntu, back, the highest.
The French philosopher Descartes, saying, "I think, therefore I am," has confined our Western understanding of man to something two-dimensional, with mind on the one hand and matter on the other. The African view resonates with the Greek analysis of man as being composed of our body, and then the soul, which is the mental and emotional body, and a third factor, which is spirit. Or as the professor has expressed it, the beast, the human, and the God self.
This force, which is exuded through the blood, is called in Sotho-Tswana Siriti, and in Zulu Isitunzi. Now both words mean something that has to do with shadow. It is something like a shadow that is exuded through the human body and covers up the whole human body. It is relation. It reacts with other people, and its relationship is either negative or positive. That is why you meet a person for the first time and you feel like that person, you are allergic to that person. And yet on the other side, a young man meets a young woman for the first time, and suddenly something happens, and this they call love at first sight. In Sesotho and Setswana, they say it is because their siriti agree with one another, and they interact with one another. It is vital siriti going out to meet the other siriti. This kind of thing, by the way, the Jews also had an experience of it, and they called it kabot. In modern knowledge, one finds that it is something like what is called the aura. It is seated in the human person and goes out and relates with other people.
The idea of institutions is the idea that is common from ancient time, which is the idea that nobody is by himself or herself. The idea of duality. You are with yourself. There is yourself that is yourself, and there is yourself that is the dimension of your spirituality of yourself. The spiritual self is sometimes more important than the physical self. It is celebrated, it is revered, it is mystified, and it is crucial that you should understand its force and its power in your actions.
Here our humanity has been simplified into two dimensions, the physical self and Siriti or Izitunzi. This is reflected in Indian philosophy when they speak of the two birds that sit on the tree of life. The one bird eats of the fruit of the tree and the other one watches. The first bird represents our body with its appetites and desires, so body and soul together, and the other is the spiritual self.
This siriti is calculated to relate to the external world of humans, animals, nature, that is vegetation, trees, rivers, mountains, and all that. Because everything that exists has its own siriti. Siriti is in fact the dwelling and working of the primary vital force, which we call the greater energy, which we call divinity, in everything that exists. And therefore, there is this interrelationship. This idea of siriti means to say every time you meet a person, every time you have a group of people, these people are each one of them having their diriti. And in any group, there is much more than just the number of people that make up that group. There are the people and their diriti acting and interacting negatively or positively with one another. So that therefore any gathering of people is a field of energy in which there is interchange of energies of people. This, I believe, is what the old people used to call, the Westerners called, the animism of Africa. I believe that is much more. I believe that it is the dynamism of life that Africa speaks about.
Animism is a word used to label African spirituality as pagan or heathen. Essentially, animism is a recognition of the divine presence as being involved in every aspect of creation. The African person's relationship with nature and the spirit are formalized through certain actions, and these are called rituals.
Ritual is a remembrance by action of an event which has happened in the past, and by enacting that event and remembering it, the benefits of that event, the force, the energy, the vitality, the dynamism of that event is then transported into the present, so that in actual fact, the people who are celebrating enjoy and go through the same amount of enjoyment and force vital that was in the previous ritual. Therefore, ritual is always something that has to do with a moment of holy experience, an upliftment out of the present into the past, or an upliftment of the past into the present, so that the present is charged with all the beneficence of the previous act and event.
There are many different kinds of ritual. The central thing about the ritual is to affirm and celebrate certain values that are relevant and crucial to the cementing of the society, that must maintain, that are qualities that are positive in the action of the society, movement of the society. That is why there's always the idea of dance, the idea of song, because it must be inclusive. It must involve the movement as itself a central quality of celebration, but a central quality of birth and rebirth and the re-nourishment of the idea. This is very important, and that's why in all the various rituals there's a quality of celebration, a quality of reaffirmation.
It is said that Africans go through 3 births during their lives. The first is biological birth, and then there's birth into adulthood through initiation, and finally birth into the realm of the ancestors through death. As in most cultures, these events are ritually celebrated.
The first rite of passage in every life is that of birth. When a child is born in Sotho Tswana, it is believed to be passing from the land of the ancestors. Every child is a gift of the ancestors. The room in which the child is born is holy. It is taboo. Not everybody gets in there. Consequently, in front of this heart is put a reed in memory of the people coming out of the reed in the ground. And any person of that culture seeing that reed will know that there is forbidden ground there. At the first new moon, this child is taken out and it is shown the elements. This they call in Sotho and Setswana Horohangwedi, that is to call at the moon. The words that are used is, there is your friend, there is your mate. When the first rain comes after the child has been born, doesn't matter how old it is, maybe a few days, it is exposed to this first rain. In other words, it is being made aware of the elements as part of its nature. Nature and the elements of nature are a person's partners in life, and this is introducing this child into that. This child then gets to be introduced into the community. And this is when it is then given its community name. This is the naming ceremony. It is called Horea Wanaliina in Setswana. In Nguni, it's called Umbeleko. And it is a very, very important ritual in African child bringing.
In the African system, the idea of naming a child is very important, because if you name the child, you express your own wish. The parent expresses his or her wish about the destiny and future of that particular child. And the names mean something. They are not labels. In other words, what kind of desire, what kind of a blessing you accorded to that child. So birth itself is an important point of beginning. It is an important point in which the parents give birth to themselves, in other words. As they give birth to themselves, they give the wish. They accompany themselves with the wish. In some African systems, this wish is integrated with the gift of the Creator before the child is born.
Then comes another very important ritual, and it is the ritual of initiation. Whereas the first ritual was the ritual of the little group of the clan and the home, the initiation ritual is usually the ritual of the bigger group, the village, or even the tribe. And it is planned for by the group of men at the khota. The principal thing about this initiation is that the young people go away from the group, from the home, and are aside for a while. Maybe a month, it may be 2, it may be 3. The young men go to the mountain. The young girls go to a similar place for the women called Bungwali or Bjali. Here they are taught the law of the group, that is the ways of their fathers and how to behave in the community. Morality is taught here, how to go about things, who to respect and how to respect. The young people have succeeded through childhood. They are now grown-up people. They become accepted, the young women as women, the young men as men, and they are able now to marry and participate even in ordinary activities of adulthood.
Dramatic point of departure into this mature adulthood where the person assumes very serious responsibilities in society. At this point, the individual is then equipped with the different kinds of knowledge that are going to be useful and relevant to its fulfillment as a human being and its initiation into the bigger world in which the small adult is being introduced into, and has to be accompanied by different kind of rituals and ceremonies to dramatize exactly that process.
African people are a very joyous people. This is the very essence of being a human person, Ubuntu. What I believe the most interesting time in one's life is at being an old person, at age. I think age in African society is seen as having achieved, having graduated. It gives you the ability to be seen as already participating in the life of an ancestor whilst you are in the flesh.
The mature age is treated as a sacred age because such a person is about to enter into the world of the ancestor. Such a person also can give blessings and people look up to such ways. They protect, in other words, the system emphasizes the idea of protecting the weak, especially those who have contributed to society, the old people. Because that person has fulfilled their journey on this cycle.
The last rite of passage is the passage from the living to the dead. When someone dies, the whole rites of the funeral are taking this dead person through a passage from the living back into the earth. That is why a funeral is not necessarily such a totally sad occasion, especially if it has to do with a thoroughly grown-up person. It is a returning from a journey back home by going back into the hole in the ground. There are other rituals that happen even after that, where there is the bringing back of the seriti of the person who has died, so that that person becomes incorporated amongst the ancestors of the group and the clan. They call it ukubuyisa umfu, returning the dead back into human circulation, so that that person can then, his or her seriti, can participate in the clan and spread all the beneficences of parenthood, although that person is with the ancestors in the Musima.
We have seen how the primal force vital, which is the source of our human energy, can manifest as man or beast or God self. The various rituals of initiation help to shape our humanity towards that ideal of Ubuntu, where we shine as exemplary human beings. If we reach this goal, then after death, as ancestors, the individual functions as guide and guardian of the community. In the following episode, we will look specifically at death and the realm of the ancestors, also known as the living dead.
One thing we all have in common is our parents and grandparents. In a word, our ancestors. Here we are in the caves of Motolweng, or also known as the ancestor caves, or the womb of Mother Earth, the fertility caves. It is a sacred site, and people come here from many parts of Africa to revere the living dead, their ancestors. In all cultures, there's some story or theory about what happens after death. Some would offer heaven and hell, or even purgatory as options in the afterlife. Others believe in reincarnation. They would say that each successive life on earth comes to us as a function of our good and evil deeds in a previous life. The Native Americans go to the happy hunting grounds, and Africans speak of a green land under the earth, the Masimo. What has happened to the ancestors in Western culture? My thoughts turn to Mother Mary, who millions of people invoke in their prayers. Or there's St. Francis of Assisi, who loved the animals, and St. Christopher, who used to be the patron saint of travelers. These people exist in the minds and in the hearts of all those who turn to them for help. So we've managed to find some remnant of the ancestors in our Western culture, although they're not obviously our specific ancestors, as in the case with the Shinto or the Native Americans or in the African culture. Let us look now at this realm of the living dead, which starts at the point of biological death.
In proper traditional African understanding, death is not a negative thing. In fact, it is very positive. When it comes at the right time after age, it is seen, in fact, as an achievement, a crowning of life. The dead is not at all cut off from the present life. It is a going back to the beginning. And by burial, a person is sent back on the way to the Musima, the hole in the ground, out of which we all originally came. So in a way, death becomes the last graduation, another rite of passage.
Those who are buried are not dead. They've just entered the womb of the earth. There's no such thing as death. There's no termination. In other words, there is the idea of continuity, that from this cycle, from this relationship with the earth, in which our lives, our thoughts are enriched and nourished by the earth, then we go into the next cycle. The next cycle is not dramatically different from the earth at first. It is only in a collaboration with that process of physicality and spirituality. It moves into another dimension, and in that other dimension, it retains the images of the life on earth, and therefore, the person who is dead is not dead. He has merely entered another cycle of